I hear more and more publishers saying, I need a Steam page, I need wishlist, I need other types of validation. We've moved from everything is possible to you kind of need to be halfway through production just to have a high chance of getting signed.
Today I'm joined by a games industry advisor who's worked across publishing, fundraising, and project financing with more than $93 million closed in transactions through Agora gaming partners. He spent years helping studios secure funding, negotiate deals, and survive a games market that's become much tougher for indie developers.
We were absolutely spoiled during COVID. People got used to the terms, got used to the simplicity. Sadly, it wasn't sustainable. Very hard to find a deal. But again, it's very doable. Money exists. Stay alive and, take deals that maybe you don't want to take when it comes to code dev and other things just to keep yourself going.
On this podcast, we talked about why publishers now want stronger validation before funding games, how deal terms have shifted as investors reduce risk. We also get into why so many studios spend too much time pitching instead of improving the game itself.
Whatever we see to improve between the last email and now, that's how we're going to judge your ability to improve. Because we get thousands of pitches, like all of the investors and publishers in the industry, that's might be where it ends.
And someone who's gone from being a pro esports player into a games investment and global publishing strategist with a focus on helping developers understand how the business side of games actually work. Please welcome this episode's guest, founder of Agora Gaming Partners, Pontus Maehler. Pontus, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Second time.
Excited to be back.
Yep. Yes, you beat me to it. Excited to have you. So you look a lot more buttoned up today.
Yeah, to be very frank with you, I've run out of clothes. So I've just been on vacation for over 2.5 weeks. So this is my day 20 on the road. And this morning I was like, this is my last shirt. I have no shirts left. So now I had to dress up because I normally would wear a t-shirt, but I don't have t-shirts left. So that's the honest God's truth.
I was going to say, Pontus has gone corporate. Nice.
No. This is my last shirt, guys. I'm sorry. At least it's pink, so it's not too...
Yeah, no, that's funny. Amazing. So for people who maybe didn't catch the last one, who hasn't, seen your name before, I will give people a very quick rap sheet. So looking at Pontus's LinkedIn, because he does a good job in terms of explaining what he's done. So former esports pro turned founder and now has over $93 million in closed transactions with his current company, Agora Gaming Partners, which is involved in publishing, fundraising, M&A deals. We covered a lot of that on our last podcast, 2024 now. And yeah, since then, grown the company quite a bit, a few new service lines, which we'll get into. But yeah, maybe for people who haven't heard of you before, what should they know about you before we kick off the conversation?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an extremely competitive person. I guess that's why I was good in esports. So yeah, I played MOBA games professionally. If you're familiar with Dota, League of Legends, and Heroes of New Earth, I played HON for a living for almost 9 years. Had my own YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. Was then the CEO of an esport company making products, mouse pads, etc. Went to a Korean company, Micro VC, did game investments in indie studios, and then founded AGP. And when we spoke, we had just started, so we did, as you can find online, a very, very small fundraise because it made things easier to hire people. And we've now grown quite a bit, and we're hopefully we'll continue to do good things in the industry. And I'm Swedish, living in Thailand. So I've been in Thailand for 11 years now, and basically my whole non-esport career has been in Asia. That's the quick recap, I think. Yeah.
Loved it. Great. So what are we going to talk about today? Chat. I felt considerate to do that because of your Twitch background, I guess. So yeah, I'm going to refer to the audience today as chat. So okay, chat. So we're going to talk about the main topics, like what deal terms are possible in 2026. So to break that down, Pontus is one of the most well-placed person to talk about the lay of the land because he's been literally doing this from not necessarily the VC side, but like at least from the games getting funded side. Not only for the last couple of years of AGP, but like for a long time. You've seen the cycles. So I'm very interested to see, like in your terms, what the lay of the land is. You made some predictions 2 years ago, which
oh God,
I will definitely should have done my prep and remembered exactly those predictions up. I remember one of them, so we'll get into how that went, and then we're going to get into kind of deal timelines and negotiations, at least from your perspective, and also the new markets and platforms people should be considering. We'll also be going to cover in China, which I know you've been doing some work in there. So even if you're about to currently for looking for funding on the game, obviously this podcast for you. But even if you just want to understand more about how the games industry works, every time I get a comment on one of these podcasts, like, oh, now I get it. So yeah, if you just work in the games industry, we're going to cover some interesting stuff. So let's start there. So Pontus, lay of the land in terms of things getting funded, like what is actually happening? Can you paint a picture for people just to understand high level?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll start with the negative, so we can keep the rest on the positive, right? So I get a lot of questions all the time about fundraising and equity. Is one of the most usual comments, like, I want to scale, I want to grow my business, and a lot of people at game events have been complaining about the lack of capital. So I figured we can keep the explanation short, but to explain to you guys why we're having such a lack of funding and equity is for many reasons, but I'll try to keep cherry pick a few. The first and primary one is the lack of exits. So, for you guys to understand, if you're unfamiliar, is when you invest in a company's stock, right? You eventually have to sell them, and in order to sell them, especially if it's not a public company, you need to get acquired by someone, right? Either in a secondary transaction when somebody buys somebody else's shares, or a full acquisition, when the entire company gets sold and you get paid out that way. There is a significant lack of acquisitions on a smaller to medium scale. So all of these companies that you've seen articles over the last couple of years have raised 5 million, 20 million, 30 million, whatever. If you check out some of those companies, you can tell that they've shut down by now due to a lack of funding or to a lack of follow-on funding. And slash or their game never made it out, or it made it out and didn't make enough money. So all of these different cases, which, as many people know, came from very experienced people from very large studios that then got significant funding, haven't had exits. Without successful exits, the VCs can't raise follow on capital or their next fund and continue to reinvest. And I think one of the bigger misunderstandings from an indie studio, just to put it in perspective, why do the VCs invest in all these fancy big corporate people rather than the indies, is because uh, statistically, which doesn't make it correct, um, hiring these, let's use League of Legends people as an example. Hiring these League of Legends people that have built $1 billion IP before, the average chance of them being able to do it again is much higher than an indie studio. But that's not the primary problem. The primary problem is for an indie, usually, we want to give you the time that you need to launch the game. You don't have as tight deadlines as a large AA or AAA studio. So that means that, let's say, from the moment I give you money, it will take a minimum of two, on average 3 to 4 years, to launch your first game if I invest early. Now, if that's the case, once that game launches, which again, statistically, maybe 1 in 10 will do really good, probably less, but just to make numbers simple. And the rest of them might do okay or really bad. Now, if they're doing okay, this exit I just mentioned will not happen, right? Nobody's going to acquire a company that just had an average game launched and perhaps you need to raise more money again, or you need to do a publishing deal or whatever it may be, which means that 3 year timeline that I had to give you money, potentially get my money back, is now maybe 6 or 7 years, right? Because now you need to develop the next game. Whether you have money or not, you need to bring out your next product that could potentially get me to that acquisition I need to make a return. And that simply doesn't happen very often in indie. And that's why a lot of VCs avoided the indie game studios, because it's very hard to predict how you guys are going to get to game one, two, and three and that eventual exit story.
Can I ask,
Yep. Yep.
isn't that VC model
Mhm.
dead for the indie world? Because surely you could just do project financing. That just makes a lot more logical sense.
Exactly. So I don't know what I predicted 2 years ago, but I hope I predicted that because that's what
You
I've been
did
saying
mention
for.
that. So yeah,
I
plus
did?
one.
Okay. So that's what I've been saying for a while, that yes, basically, when I get this question, I tell people today it's extremely hard. So if your whole strategy relies around raising equity, I'd suggest you start looking at other avenues as well. To be clear, it's still possible. It's just 10% of the chance it used to be a couple of years ago.
Yeah, which is
So
huge. And
yes.
we've done a lot of few podcasts recently, and the
Mhm.
topic of kind of not graduating as an indie founder, but like being a commercially minded indie founder and understanding how you can't just make a game and then figure out how you're going to get the money and then the publisher will take care of everything. Like I've been meeting with some of these people like in person, like in their office in Barcelona, and I'm just like just trying to stress test like you need to raise that money to finish the game and then you're going to get a publishing deal and you have 2 more years and you're paying everyone in here, and you're not doing any promo now, like what we doing? Like you're
Yep.
building a product in a silo. Please stop. Like that's my business mindset now. But there is a lot of that happening. But I also have spoken to others who, kind of, I guess, get it. Like, okay, I need to build a business, so we need to build a game, and then maybe build a second game, third game, and that's where my brain goes. Like, why would you consider project financing or
Mhm.
raising money when, at least my brain goes, like, let's bootstrap in the context of let's get some money in, release a game with a lot smaller budget. And the topic of like friend slot game has come up on a few pods where it's like, can you make a game? I mean, Sweden is a great example. Like a lot of the games coming out of Sweden, you could argue from the outside looking in, you know, I could do that. What I mean? Like, what if that can become the first two games? Um, I'm just thinking, like, do you need to bet the farm on the entire studio and raise money and then hope for the best? Like, surely, from my mindset, bootstrapping will make sense for a lot of these people who are just building something that's like, well, we can't be a budget AAA game. Like, it's just let the AAA do the
No.
AAA stuff. Um, I rambled a bit there, but hopefully you've got something to kind of pick at.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not a game developer and I'm not a creator. Sadly, I'm not imaginative enough or I guess smart enough to make a game, but I can help people make games. And I
Mm.
think what you're saying is really hard for me to answer because I would love to continue having this mass amount of different founders doing different things because I love to see how different people work and the ideas that they have and the products that they develop. That what would be commercially sound in this particular case, I hope it doesn't happen. I hope people continue to do all of these different business models and ideas just so you can see incredible products from all across the world, right? But yes, commercially, theoretically, nowadays you can just make a very cheap, quote unquote, friend slap game, and if you're lucky, it can take off. But at the same time, there are hundreds of these being made, and again, statistically, not a lot of them are successful. So I think it's really hard to say that yes, you should just try to do like let's call it the mobile way, right? How it used to be in mobile is making a bunch of different prototypes very cheaply, launch them, market test them, and then work on them, right? So you could argue that these smaller games, maybe you can get one done in 3 months, see how it goes, make the next one, etc., on PC and console as well. But I really don't. I hope we don't go there. Like just
Yeah.
personally speaking, not commercially speaking, right? I love people will fail and people will succeed, and I love to see so much different creativity and talent that whether it's a bad business choice, I hope people still do it. I
Yeah.
guess I think games in all genres, all budgets nowadays are possible, and I think that's the biggest beauty. I think 10, 15 years ago or whatever, these quote unquote friend slap games would never have been this successful. But people nowadays, they just want to have fun. They just want to play with their friends, whether the game has the best graphics of all time or it doesn't. People care
Yeah.
so much about game mechanics nowadays and like systematic gameplay and replayability that they don't care about these $100 million plus games. But then you say that, and then you look at the amount of revenue from the AAA games versus indie, and AAA is still, the majority, right?
Yeah. But
Uh, yeah.
isn't that just because it's like saying, Disney films make all the money in the movie industry? It's like, yeah, but it's Disney. Like, there's still this, let's say 10% of the business of,
Yeah.
the revenue is spent on new games, right? That's still huge.
Yes.
Like, you can start there, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Like, I'm
No, I mean,
maybe to ask you, yeah, go on, Pontus.
no, you can finish first. Sorry, let's go ahead.
I was going to say, I just wanted to ask you, like, let's make it tactical. So, the last couple of years, you've been doing this, right? You've been speaking to a lot of founders. Some succeeded, some maybe haven't.
Yeah.
I don't need you to break any NDAs, but what's been working? What have you been seeing performing, better than others, or any insights over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I have this amazing chart, but I'm not going to screen share now, where I basically explain timelines, where things have gone, right? So
Okay.
initially, a couple years ago, it was possible to get signed. Let's call it anything, paper pitch, whatever, right? A couple of years later, you needed to have a prototype or a demo. A couple of years later, you needed to have a vertical slice. And nowadays, to be honest with you, it's vertical slice plus, like
Plus,
alpha,
like,
beta, very
community or
close to
plus
launch. Yeah.
validation?
No, just validation. Yes, community is another point. I hear more and more publishers saying, I need a Steam page, I need wishlist, I need other types of validation, which in the past wasn't as important, but now sometimes is even like a must have criteria. But in short, we've moved from the everything is possible to you kind of need to be halfway through production just to have a high chance of getting signed. Now, saying this, that doesn't mean again that you can sign earlier, but statistically, after vertical slice nowadays is where most people want to meet you. So you're asking me what is the best strategy? Frankly, it's so hard to answer because I know if I answer it in one way, people will be angry in the comments. But why do I need an investor for if I invest all of this money first and then you guys come in and you take
Well,
the
it's a
glory?
vertical slice, we say to them.
Yeah.
They're not saying finish the game. Chill.
No, but many times I have this argument, and I'm not talking about what's right or wrong. I'm just saying what the facts are, right?
Yeah.
So if you can make it to vertical slice, if that's when I recommend starting to pitch, right? Like again, going on best business strategy. The later you pitch nowadays, the better terms you get, because terms have also gotten worse. Again, guys, from last time, not what's right or wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Terms,
like the honest truth here.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So terms have gotten worse, but the later you are in the process, the better terms you can get, right? So one of my slides in that particular presentation, I also explained that we've gone from, again, on average, and you can confirm this with there's this wonderful legal report. I forgot the name of it, but it's a free one where a law firm uploaded like 100 indie contracts and compared the different terms. You can find this, I forgot the name, but if you guys can find that, you can validate the information I'm about to tell you. So
cool.
nowadays, deals have mostly gone from 100-0 or 80-20 pre-recoup to basically standardizing at 50-50. This is
Can
average
you break
deals.
that down for
Uh,
someone who maybe doesn't know those numbers or like just high
Yeah,
level?
sure.
What does
So
that mean?
sorry. So just to explain. So when you go for a publishing deal or a project financing deal, so just let's call it funding for simplicity. Standard funding, no special grants or anything like that. In the past, it was possible to negotiate stuff like 50-50 day one. You just straight up split 50-50 because probably on average you both put in money, etc. And publishers used to have better cash flows, and public stock companies that owns a lot of publishers used to be doing better. So they could take more risk. Nowadays, that has changed to whatever the publisher or investor invests will then basically be 80% to them or up to 100% until they've recouped all of it. And then it goes to 50-50, which again is the standard baseline. But you should always negotiate better than that. Okay, guys? If they tell you 50-50 is the final, unless they paid for your whole game, I'd suggest you keep negotiating.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 50-50, and then occasionally 60-40, 70-30 to the developer. All of this would be, again, case by case. The normal math nowadays that doesn't work anymore was like you just basically put this is how much I put in, this is how much you put in, and that's how you negotiate the terms. That's kind of sadly disappeared. So I still see the 80-20s and the 100 zeros until 50-50, even if you've invested a lot of money and a lot of your time. And I don't think that's fair. What we
When
always
you say
try to
you don't
do.
think that's
Mhm.
fair, I
Yep.
don't understand it because aren't we
Mhm.
just in a maybe this is the business hawk in me, but like a publisher doesn't have to sign you; they will sign the best deal. So isn't that just like competition doing its thing, or is it like the music industry where they're taking advantage of people who aren't shopping around? Like when you say it's not fair, what do you mean?
So okay, so two points to that question. Not fair. Let me answer that secondly. First part is um, they need to take less risk because if you look at again public data, public deals, public publishers that have to submit their revenue to the stock market, you can see that they had so many failures, right? That's why they're not able to kind of double down or sign a lot of games now because a lot of their games failed because they took too much risk. A lot of games didn't make it to market because they got involved too early. Going back to the point of vertical slice, so the games got canceled, etc. So all of that is built into a risk profile that has just been getting smaller and smaller, right? Like again, having validation, having all these different things before I give you money. What I mean about the point of not being fair is in my head, if I've invested $1 million and you've invested $1 million, we're both taking equal risk, except, if the publisher, sorry, dies or you die or something happens, sorry, not in terms of real life death, bad use of words.
The
Um,
company is no more.
exactly. Companies no more. Um, when you work with a publisher, you don't lose your house. They don't have any collateral, right? Well, you as a person, if you take a bank loan or something else, usually there is some sort of collateral. So the publisher is arguing that you don't have any risk here because if the game fails, I lose my $1 million. But then going back to the fair point, but if I put in a million, You put in a million. We're still doing equal risk, right? If the game fails. So in my head, that means that the deal should be 50-50, right? Because we're both investing the same amount day one.
Isn't
Now,
that when the
mhm,
vertical slice has warranted $1 million budget? Like, if I told you I put in
mhm,
$1 million, but the game is shit, I'm not going to say, "Oh, your shit is worth $1 million."
definitely. So that's another part of the negotiation, right? Have you spent that million appropriately? Again, I'm just trying to simplify here because we can definitely dig in where the amount of times people misspend is
Yeah, they shouldn't be
insane.
rewarded for that. Like, maybe I'm being
No.
so the game developers think,
Mhm.
Harry, stop shooting us in the foot here. I'm just trying to understand, like, is the publisher the bad guy? Because we've had a few on, by the way,
Mhm.
and I've had both reactions, like, definitely doing way too much, or the others, like, we're the good guys. And I've had all the in between. And I'm just trying to understand, in the music industry, it feels a lot more predatory than what I'm hearing in the games industry when you're talking.
I think so too, but there are a lot of bad publishers out there as well, right? That's what we got to consider
Sure.
too. I mean, and one thing that is a risk for you as a developer, what if there are more layoffs and you lose the actual team that was supposed to be publishing your game? It's no longer the initial deal where you had that exact same producer, the exact
Can't we
same
put that
marketing
in the
team, and so
contract?
forth.
Or they're not going to sign that?
Technically, you could, but yeah, they won't sign that. But
Yeah.
you could try. No, but again, discussing what's fair, etc. I think what my point was is that we've gone from that more financial to just de-risking as much as possible. But remember that you can always negotiate better terms later. So like 60-40s and 70-30s into your favor based on performance. Because like, yeah, you talked about a lot of publishers doing a lot. Yes. But in my opinion, once you've, done a couple of multipliers, whether it's 3 times your money or whatever, then I think it's fair for the developer to get a larger portion,
So would you put that
right?
from day one in the contract?
Uh, Yes, is my short answer. I was trying to see if I could say some examples, but no. Yes, usually AGP helps you negotiate different steps. So let's just, for simplification, just do a regular deal. 80-20, let's say, pre-recoup, because that's all that's available. And the publisher is putting in significant cash towards the project. So we don't do the whole 50-50 calculation. Just they're putting in money. We think it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. So 80-20, 50-50 until, let's call it 2x. 2x for the publisher's investment, which also includes marketing or whatever else that we agree on. Some deals, yeah, I can generalize. Some deals we include localization, marketing, etc., all in combination. Sometimes that's not recoupable. Everything comes down to what you negotiate. The one thing that 90% of the time is not included, and I can't talk about our contracts, I'll generalize, is publisher salaries and costs should not be included. I've seen that a lot, where the
Really?
publisher sometimes adds
Cheeky.
a percentage on top. And depending on who the publisher is and depending on the total investment, again, you could argue because at the end of the day, with the whole recoupment and rev shares, it's going to turn out to the same number, if you catch what I'm trying to say. So if the recoup model, if the turn to you having more rev share comes earlier, maybe you could agree to a tiny percent on top for work done, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's all at the end of the day an Excel sheet based on the units sold, what you feel comfortable with.
Okay.
But again, going back, so 50-50, and then 60-40 to the developer, and we always try to push for 70-30. Now, frankly, 70-30 is almost impossible, but that's because most of our clients are, $1 million plus in development funding. So the publisher is putting in significant amount of money, and usually they're putting in more than half of the developer. So arguing
Okay.
for a 70-30, again, we always try to, but it's very hard to do because, of course, the publisher also needs to continue making money and support the game. But now we would have to dig deeper on, is it a live ops game? Does it have like 10 years of patches? Now we would get too detailed.
Yeah.
So remember, if you're listening to this, every deal is different. You have to take all of this into account. Are you going to do regular updates, which means cost for you, not the publisher? Is the publisher recommitting marketing for these new updates? Like, are they going to invest more money? Are they going to be adding new languages in the future? Are they going to be paying for the console ports if the PC version is doing well? Are
That's
they
a good
taking
one.
that risk, or are you taking that risk? Or if you're porting it internally, are they paying you to do it? Right? There are all of these extra things that you have to consider when you're negotiating the final amount. But for me, I would say when a publisher invests a lot of money and the ultimate outcome is 60-40 to the developer after X, and the publisher is supporting the game over time, and you are an indie developer with like a new IP, that would generally speaking, for today's standards, be a good deal.
Okay, great. Before I move on, if I want to get that good deal,
Mhm,
not including all the different exceptions for if it's a live ops game or what have you, like what's maybe a
mhm.
common thread across all of that that an indie founder listening to this should definitely remember? Maybe a mistake that you commonly see or something for them to kind of leave with. If they can leave with that one thing.
Oof, I've seen so many mistakes.
Yeah. I'll take bullets if you think it's
Honestly,
more than one.
let me be on the publisher side for 1 second. Don't lie to your publisher. The amount of times I have seen the publisher extend additional budget and timeline is when the developer is very upfront that they're either A, delayed, miscalculated, uh, these two extra features will take longer and they had no idea. And you just basically say, guys, like we're 7 months from launch. This is not going to happen. Actually, I don't think I'm lying when I say 100% of the time with developers I've worked with, we have gotten additional money. And every single time the publisher was very like, okay, thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. On the flip side, I've many times seen developers bring it up last minute or even threatening, saying, oh, sorry, we're going to go out of business next month if you don't give me more cash. And I'm like, huh? And this has happened to stuff we've invested in as well in the past. Uh,
Hmm.
not AGP. But yeah, be honest with your publisher. I think that's the biggest mistake you can make. I mean, at the end of the day, they're investing money in you. You are in flipping it. You're investing money in them because if they do a
It's
bad
like a
job,
marriage. You wouldn't lie to your
yeah,
partner.
exactly. If you don't have a good enough relationship and if you can't talk this openly, they're not a good partner, and neither are you. So
Yeah.
I'd say that's the
No.
to be on the publisher side for 1 second, and that's of course also goes for product finance. If you're getting an external investor and you're self-publishing, and let's say that the first marketing campaign didn't do as well as it should have, and you need an extra money for marketing or anything, like just be always open with your partners. If you can't be open, it's not the right partner for you. And the thing is, if it starts causing troubles, the publisher's like, no, screw you, etc., etc. Again, there is a larger problem here. So that part, and that also goes with the budget, right? I've seen sometimes recently, sadly, not our clients, but confirmed stories, let's call that, where because the market is so bad, developers have asked for less money than they need, and then intentionally later come back and said, "Oh, I need more money."
I've met these people.
I am not surprised. I have seen it many times in the last 6 to 12 months, where because they know they can't close 5 million,
Yeah. But
they
they
ask
know
for
they can get
three.
half a mil and then, I've got you in now.
Yeah, and that is a very big problem. Um, but okay, let's not be nice to publishers then and go to developers. Mistakes would be there are so many things you have to watch out for in the contract, but stuff like IP ownership, takeover rights if the game doesn't get launched. So, for example, which is a fair clause in some cases, not all cases, depending on the scope, that if you're not able to deliver the game to a certain quality, then the publisher can take over and finish the game themselves. This is in I think a pretty standard market clause. If
So
you
what
look at
should a
that legal
developer
document.
consider for these points?
Exactly. So if and it is possible that I've seen developers burn out and simply not be able to work anymore and stuff like that. And that's not your fault, man. Mental health nowadays is very important. And if that happens, again, being transparent with your relationship with the publisher, when you negotiate that clause, always make sure you get revenue, right? You need to continue to get revenue when the game has launched anyway, even if the publisher takes it over.
Yeah, because
I've
you've
seen
put in all that
clauses
effort.
where Yes, I've seen clauses where the publisher tries to basically just delete the developer's participation because they didn't finish the contract. I'm like, that's not fair. So IP and takeover. Again, the revenue share. How is the revenue share quantified? And I mean that by the definition of gross revenue and net revenue. Make sure that that's clear. And the
Should I just Google
recoupment.
that? Sorry, Pontus. Like, should I just Google
Well,
standard terms
on it,
or
yes, but also hire a lawyer. I'm sorry, anybody who
nice?
complains about 5,000 USD in lawyer cost and when you're making a big
Is
contract.
that total cost or is that a one-off cost every time?
So I used 5,000 as an example because a lot of the lawyers nowadays have like an indie package, which is 5,000 or less. So two
For the
to two to three,
full negotiation?
full negotiation. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
this is only for indies. So I'm
Sure.
pretty sure. Like I think Wiggins does this. I think Level Up does this, and a couple of other firms where they just have like a
But they
indie
could tell their
package.
lawyer,
Yeah.
"Hey, I watched this podcast
Yes.
with Pontus. Should we think about this?" and then they're good to go.
Yeah, I'm sorry if it's not Wiggins or Level Up. I apologize if I called you out, but I've seen this multiple times. So yeah, 2 to 3, as a, baseline, but 5, honestly, with the amount of back and forward, I think 5 is a good number to keep in mind. So
Yeah, I
spending
think that's respectable. I
$5,000,
paid
yeah,
more than that when I'm not doing any negotiation like that. I'm just
yeah.
trademarking my company and doing all the little bits and bobs.
Yeah, we're doing trademarks now too, so I can yeah. But no, so, yeah, please hire a lawyer. Yes, of course, you can Google the clauses, but it's always worth the money, guys. Always. This is what they are. Even if you have a $50,000 deal, paying 10% of that to not have issues in the future, please do it.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
cool.
gross net revenue recoupment again. Like what are they allowed to recoup? Sometimes there are sneaky clauses like, all external costs, blah blah blah. And remember, if they ask to audit you, you can audit them. Goes
So
both ways.
you can have a bilateral
Exactly.
audit clause.
Yes. So mutual audit, where you can do it once every year or 2 years. It depends on the negotiation. Um, but yeah, basically that you can audit them and make sure that they
Sweet.
actually pay you the right amounts. I can
Alrighty.
continue. There's like 20 different clauses, but I would say the money clauses are always. How do we use a real world example? Money always causes problems, even in personal lives, right? Like that's just how it is. Money is our fuel, and it's usually a point of contention. So when it comes to these clauses, pay extra attention
Love it.
to
Alrighty.
to simplify.
So I've gone through this far on the podcast. I feel like I have the toolkit. I'm more well equipped to be having these conversations with publishers. Now let's think of a bit of a second kind of but related point, like new markets and platforms. Like where can my game be published? Where should it go? And I would love to maybe hear you start with a story because I've you told me before we started recording, like you've entered a new market and you started doing that. So
Mhm.
maybe explain what's happened there. Like why did you do that? What happened?
Yeah, actually, I want to quickly jump back. Sorry, to your
Sure.
previous question, because I forgot that even though I've given you some of these tools now to negotiate, so to finish what's out there, you have publishers, you have product financing funds, a lot of them now, a lot of them. Generally speaking, product finance is cheaper capital. It might have a similar structure to publishers on day one, like the pre recoup stage. But after that, it's cheaper than publishers because remember, they're not providing services. So all these terms I just gave you were for publishers. For product financiers, you can negotiate much better. Usually,
Then
what we're
hire a
seeing,
publisher as a service you would recommend?
hire a publisher as a service, or if you're comfortable with doing it yourself with a marketing firm, I mean, that's a negotiation between you and the product financing fund, right? So just remember that if you're negotiating with a product financier and they're asking the same terms as a publisher, that's not fair after a certain multiplier, right? Because they're not giving you the crossover portfolio promotion. They're not giving you the constant sales management, new markets, new platforms. Maybe they'll fund your new platforms, but they're not doing it, right? So just remember that product finance is a great tool to build games, and obviously we are collaborating with one as well. But it should be cheaper than a publisher, generally speaking. Game Pass deals and all these platform deals and stuff like that, guys, are still possible. They're rarer, but they exist. So you can still remember that as well. And then we're getting to the new markets, which we'll get to. But I just wanted to remind you guys that we're just speaking of publishers as one way of funding. There is many other types of funding. And I have to say that from a non-gaming perspective, some countries' banks have gotten really good.
Yeah.
Providing across like co-investments. So a publisher comes in, they'll double your money at like very low interest rates, etc. So
Do you
if
know
you're in a
these
country,
countries?
yeah, France, for example, Ireland, Malaysia,
Do you have to
uh,
live there, or
yeah,
could you just register the entity there? Do you know?
you can have an entity there. I think you have to have some sort of local presence in some of them. But for France, I mean, I guess the most obvious one that everybody knows about is the tax credit. And to get the tax credits, you need to live there. But
Sure.
I don't know the exact number, so sorry, France, but I think it's like a 30% refund on all your spend locally, all your employee salaries, etc., which is amazing.
Mm.
And now couple that with a co-investment from a bank, for example, with a publisher coming in. First, you get double the money, and then you obviously have to pay back the loan, of course, but you also get the tax credit. So a lot of really cool countries and grants available nowadays as well. Now, if
Sounds
I
like the games industry is really popping off with all these investment opportunities right now, like the ways to get money.
ways to get money, yes, but I don't want to be that positive. It's still a lot harder than it used to be, but it's still there. And the
But
UK
wasn't it
Games Fund, sorry, so
obscenely easy?
yeah,
Maybe like I'm trying to tell people like you didn't deserve the COVID time. I don't know. Like that's how my brain works. Like it just happened to be a big blip. Am I being too double downer here? Like I'm like deal with it,
No,
guys.
so I have a slide on that and that presentation as well. Sorry for mentioning that one, but yeah, I say something similar that we were absolutely spoiled during COVID, and people got used to the terms, got used to the simplicity, and sadly, it wasn't sustainable. This was going to happen at some point.
I think accepting that is important. I don't know. This is my mindset,
Yes.
but it's like if you accept that right now everyone's out to get you, you won't behave in a beneficial way. This is how my brain
Yeah.
works. It's like you think, like if you think like, all right, let me just get the best opportunity there is. That's all you can do.
Yeah, honestly, there's so much good business to be done today. It is possible. It's very hard. It sucks, and I'm sure there are investors and publishers taking advantage of the situation. Like I'm sure there is, but it is possible to do good business today.
Yeah.
It really is. It does require more effort from you guys, later stage demos, etc. But it is possible.
All righty, great.
Sorry, now we can go next.
No, it's all good. Great. So yeah, you're in a new market, Pontus, and I'd love for you to share kind of what you're exploring there, and maybe the listeners what they should know because not
Yeah.
everyone.
So
Let's talk about it.
yeah, I mean, I've been a broken record about new markets for 10 years, and obviously being based in Asia, of course, I'm a bit biased, but one of my dreams was always to help bridge the west to east gap. Being able to have more transparent negotiations and um, uh, better services, etc. So yeah, we've incubated a team in China that is currently doing publishing services. So we have a team there that has their own company and is doing amazing. And we publish stuff like Monument Valley 3. We just helped replace the other day, so the game from Thunderful. We've done Town to City. We've done Lego Party. So we've had a couple of really cool games that we worked on. Well, not we, sorry, I haven't done it. They have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, we incubated a team there, and they're now doing really great. So this is just one of what was always one of my dreams. Like I always wanted to work with people that I trust to help bridge that gap. So we're not here to promote them. I'm here to promote that market because if you have not looked into China and Asia, you are messing up. Very, very simple. And I've said this for so long. So I'm going to make one very simple explanation here. If you're lazy, if you have no intent on going to these different markets, no intent to localize for whatever reason, then hand it off to someone else. You're leaving money on the table. One of the simple things is, right, that one market in the world, just one country, can make you $10 million. Practically any single country in the world that plays video games, you can make 10 million if you hit that market, right? That's a
Okay.
fact. So that means, for some reason, if your game takes off in Japan, you can make 10, 20, 30, $40 million. So if you're not looking at all these different markets, I understand it's a lot of work, but that's why I'm saying if you're lazy or you don't know, find partners to work with. So there are many different ways to do this. You can either find a publisher. So that could be, like a 70-30 deal to you, by the way, or a 50-50 deal to you. It depends. Like it's all over the place in Asia, to be honest with you. So I can't generalize as much as I can in the West, but I've seen all kinds of terms. But let's say, again, better than $0 in China, right? So even if it's a
Yeah.
50-50 deal, even if it's just marketing investment, it's a country you normally wouldn't localize and go to. So do it. So again, you only need to succeed in one market. That's a fact. So when you look at all these countries like Brazil, Argentina, Korea, Japan, China, etc., countries where they don't speak English as the primary language, try to find partners to assist you. So going back, sorry to repeat, but publisher, co-publishing deals where basically, agencies, marketing agencies and stuff offers you marketing guarantees that they recoup, and then they take a small, raising your hand.
Yeah. Um, what stage is this? After the game's already out?
Ah, so let's take China first because that's the biggest market. 6 months
Mhm.
before launch usually.
Oh, so this is
So
before launch.
yeah, so
I thought
actually,
for some reason this is after you have a successful game they would even touch it, but you can do it before market
Yes.
traction.
So
Interesting.
actually, I'm going to quote the Chinese people that I met at China Joy last year. Why do
Please.
Western people keep pitching us 3 months before or one day before the goddamn launch? That's what they all told me, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know it was that bad." They literally told me that Western publishers, even so, publishers looking for more support, come to them like 3 months before, and they're like, "We're the same as you guys. We got to prepare a marketing plan. We got to be ready."
Wow.
So this is like live from China Joy last year. I was told this by many publishers. So yes, guys, they would like to talk to you ideally 6 months before your launch. Now, of course, if you have no traction, no wish list, etc., same as the West, will be very hard to find a deal. But even if you have 10,000 wish lists, usually the way the process works is the same as the West. You send over your game, they do a market analysis of, will this game be successful in China? Does it make sense? And what's the potential ROI, right? So if we invest 20,000 USD, what's the potential amount of units that we can sell in China? Because an important point here is, guys, that on average, a copy in China is sold at a 55% discount gross. So to simplify, $20 in the West means $10 in China, which means 5 USD net in China for your copy. Because remember, you have Steam, you have chargebacks, etc. So on average, a $10 game is $5. So a $20 game in the West is $5 net in China.
Do you have any
So they do.
examples of like, sorry to interrupt,
Yep.
if you got a Western game that's doing well, like how many copies can I expect to get in China? Give me a big range if you have to, but like, I'm very
So
curious.
a game that is not meant to be there, but can do well, is 5 to 7% of all your sales in terms of units,
Globally,
not revenue. Yep, that's like a
like
normal.
English speaking countries, you have a game that is not been localized, not been thought,
No, no,
they
no.
didn't even
Has to be
think about.
localized.
Sorry,
Has to
sorry,
be localized.
localized, but China wasn't in the game design conversations.
Yes.
That can
So
still
five.
get 5 to 7%.
Yes, a good game, like an actual good game, and you can. What's a good game? But a good
Yeah,
game can make
like
5 to 7%
positive
if it's
review game.
localized. Yes, if it's localized.
Whoa.
Now, Chinese people are much more strict on games. They're not big fans. Don't shoot me, Lily, here now if she hears this. They're not fans of early access and like unfinished games. They'd much rather have like a finished title. Or if you're
Hmm.
doing early access, it has to be significantly discounted. So, like in their mindset, they have a much higher standard than what we do in the West. That's something
Yeah.
I've learned. I've seen actually Slay the Spire 2. If you guys go on that page right now, you'll see that it's like 85 or 90% positive, but China is mixed reviews. Now,
Mm.
I don't know why, to be clear, because I just saw it this morning. Because I saw some article that's like, oh, Slay the Spire 2 is mixed reviews. I'm like, no, it isn't. And then I saw it was just in China. But
Can
going back to
I?
my point,
Can
yep,
we explain this maybe? So, should I
I
be
would
thinking
have
about this in the
to.
development process? I found this little Reddit post. Um, I think the fundamental difference is that Chinese community focus more on consistency. They
Yes.
value consistency and streaking, and then
Hmm.
it starts talking about development. Zero upvotes, 81 questions. So people didn't like this guy. But what does this
No, but
mean when it comes to my game? Like only release finished games in China, or should I
no,
still try
not
it?
not at all. Like that's when you. So if you're early, don't spend a bunch of money. That's why I'm saying when talking to a partner, this is their job, right? They're gonna tell you, oh no, this game is not a fit for China. That's the worst thing that's gonna happen to you. That they tell you this is not a game fit for China, or it's not ready. Come back later. Right. That's why I'm saying that we don't know the Chinese market that well. So let the experts do what they do. And this
You
is
have a
free,
Chinese
right?
publisher, right?
Yes, we incubated a Chinese publishing label. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I think you're being too
Yeah.
humble. So instead of chat to every Chinese publisher, also chat to yours. I'm guessing.
We're happy to introduce you to Lily. Yes, very happy to do so.
Amazing.
And
Yeah, just to be
again,
really transparent.
yes, yes, and not me. I'm not the expert here in China. I can tell you a lot about Thailand, Korea, etc. But China, that's for
Nice. So what's the
someone
name
else.
of the publisher so people can find it, or I'll put a link in the description.
I think they would like to wait with the announcement of the name, so I will let. For now,
No
we'll keep it
worries.
quiet. You can email me, Pontus at agoragamingpartners.com or Lily at agoragamingpartners.com, and they will take
Nice.
care of you.
Everyone can get early access.
Exactly. No, it is early access really because we haven't announced uh, anything really. So
I
yeah,
don't have anyone to refer to. I've had individual consultants, but actual full publishers. I have you and this other guy, but he's not finished yet. He's yeah, I won't spoil his plans, but he's doing something big with helping bring West to China. Actually, I have no one who's doing it right now, and I've been asked,
I think I
so this
know
is
who
good.
that guy is. His name
Ah,
starts
nice.
with an I, right?
No S.
Oh,
I'll
there's
tell
another
you
one.
after the call.
Okay, okay. No, but so going back to his guys, yes, of course, pitch us as well, and the team. But generally speaking, it works the same thing as the West. You submit your project, they look at it, they give you that review for free if they don't like the game, right? They're like, no, it's not a
Yeah,
fit. And
free
if they tell you
consulting.
it's not a fit, it might not be worth localizing the game. But it's not very expensive. On average, localizing your game to Chinese is between 2 and 5,000 USD for a lot of words. If it's oh, I should know this in my head. Lily, sorry. Um, okay, sorry. Right now, I don't remember the exact price per word, but it's very low. So, a medium-sized game, again, 2 to 5 thousand
That's
dollars.
crazy. Wait a minute. So the only cost is localization and marketing, really, or is there anything else I'm missing?
Well, so of course, this is talking about launching on Steam. If
Yeah,
you're asking me about launching with an ISBN and like a license fee, etc., this is a whole different process. Yeah.
those are local Chinese ways to buy games.
Yeah, well, we can keep it there. It's a long thing to talk about. So yeah,
Sure,
just
no
like
worries.
localizing it on Steam and making the game accessible. We're talking.
So that
So
five
going back,
percent number you made was about a Steam release.
yes.
Oh, great. Yeah. So everything else
So
could be bonus.
yeah, so 5 to 7% for an okay game, 1 to 2 for games that aren't localized, because some Chinese people do play English-speaking games,
Wow.
even if it's a good one. If you really hit the market, China can be up to 30% of all of your sales.
What is the difference of really hitting the market?
I would love to explain that to you, but that's for the Chinese people to explain because
All good.
it's very hard to explain, to be honest. I always like that's why I
Sure.
love working with Lily. She's great at this, and she can really break down the mindset of the local players. But I do not fully understand. That's why you
No
let
worries.
smarter people do the work.
I love it.
Right?
I definitely know that. Amazing. So you told me before the podcast what drives
Mhm.
you to wake up in the morning is creating amazing games. So I want to spend a few minutes on
Yeah, yeah. So
the
again,
decision. On.
I'm very I think this goes for my whole life. When I like something, I really like it, and it gets me excited. So I cook a lot. Like my barbecue is my favorite time to spend the weekend,
Nice.
doing different types of smoked fish and steaks and grills and stuff. And that gets me up privately, right? And I like some red wine and stuff. And clearly, after my vacation, I got a bit fatter, so I got to take care of myself when I get home. Um, Gaming is the same for me. When I really, really burn for something, I just keep playing it, and I want to help it, and I want to make it happen and bring it to more people. So that's why, like, if you were to look at my Steam catalog, I have like a couple games like Elden Ring, where yes, I got the platinum trophy and I finished it, but really I have like way too many hours in the Total War games and Counter Strike and Dota. Like when I really burn for something, then I spend a lot of time on it, and it's the same in my job. Like I want to have that same excitement when we work on something where I wake up and I'm like, yes, we're helping these guys bring the game to market and we can do a lot of work for them, which is why as you can tell by AGP, the only thing you've seen is that fancy number of the deals we closed, but you haven't seen who we've done it for. And sadly, that is just due to NDAs. Now, we've been told for a while now that a couple of them will be able to be announced soon, but it hasn't happened yet. But
Sure.
really, we've been incredibly lucky working on great games, and that's what we're looking for right now as well. So we really Harry, when I tell you about one of our clients, I want to be like this, happy and
Yeah.
excited, and
Of
just if
course.
I'm not, then what's the point? You might as well hire a consultant or an agent that does it for you, at a cost. For us, we want this burning feeling when we work with someone. Yeah.
I want to ask you, like, that burning feeling. Do you think there's any decisions a game developer could make to make more games that kind of maybe get you excited, but also like, what do you think will get the industry excited? Like, do you see any patterns there?
To see that, so that's like such a tough question, right? Because I always tell developers, even the ones that we work with, even when it's sometimes the wrong decision, that don't be too influenced about what publishers and investors say when they feedback you, right? You have to listen, of course. Every feedback
Well,
has
what
to be
about the
taken
market,
serious.
right? Like, there's some cool tools that have come out where you can see the sentiment of like the market.
Yes, the playtesting nowadays, early, very early, is extremely important. But again, going back to my point, be a bit careful about listening 100%, because it's always, as a small developer, you don't have the luxury of hiring 5,000 playtesters, right? So try to at least stick to your core, because if you lose that burning feeling, man, the game's not going to be good. So
Mm.
yeah, it's hard to say, because I'm also the guy who will be like, you need to kill the game. It's not going to work.
Well,
I
yeah,
will
because
be that
that's
one.
good for their life and their future games that they would never make if you don't tell them that.
Exactly. So I'm like kind of torn here of what to say, because there are so many different scenarios. But um, yeah, it's tough to say, because I've
Sure.
seen developers who follow trends and try to do everything in their power to hit that trend. The problem is 2 years later, that trend's gone by the time your game is ready for launch. So I think, at its core, build what you want to build, but make sure there is a target audience. What I mean by that is, you can always figure out what a target audience is, because if you look at people who have bought Slay the Spire and Balatro and these kind of stuff, their Steam profile follows a pattern. And this target audience will not change with trends. A player that likes Balatro is going to like a poker game 5 years later, is going to like a Red Coin game or whatever PlayStation just launched. That is a target audience. Target audience will always exist. So whenever somebody's building a product, you need to know that target audience in advance. And when I say that, I mean mechanically. So that's my little
Yeah,
pet
yeah.
peeve, I guess, or whatever the name is.
No,
Um,
it's good.
when you build a game, build it towards a target audience liking of certain mechanics, because you know that they're going to want to come back to similar titles. And the beauty is, you don't know if that's going to be, for this particular game, a Chinese audience, a German audience, a French audience, etc. That comes later when you develop. But I like to try to figure out as much as possible what the target audience is in terms of mechanics. Demographics is possible. So, like, graphics is one of the things that, certain like China doesn't like a certain type of art style, and Western people don't like a certain type of art style, etc. So there are many things you can do to narrow the target audience as much as possible, so that when you get to a publisher and investor, at least you have the target profile. But but again, it's still a guessing game in a way or form, because when the product's ready, things will potentially change. But I think that's the closest thing to research you can do, is
Yeah,
find the target audience of mechanics. And
yeah.
that's spoken as a non-game developer, purely from a commercial and business perspective, where we have analyzed thousands of games, thousands of Steam profiles, and what their library has, where that is one consistent thing, where the same player continues to buy similar mechanics, where there is a crossover.
Love it. I
Not a great
wanna
answer, but I'll live
No,
with
it
it.
is because we had the CEO of Gamerpedia on the podcast when they released this tool. So just to
Mhm.
visualize what you're talking about, Pontus,
Yep.
this came out like start of this year, so it's relatively new, but it's based on manually done data. Just
Mhm.
to um, if I pick a game here, so this is a tool which is relatively inexpensive, where you can get every single game and find out what are each mechanics on the said game, and then you're like, all right, find me the top 10 games which have sold X amount of copies with that mechanic. So you don't have to compare against like an Ubisoft of the world. You can compare against people like your size. Um, like this was never available like 2, 3 years ago. Like you can actually go down mechanic by mechanic and then see, okay, what
Okay.
indie games are actually making money on certain mechanics. So like what you're saying
Mhm.
is possible to do research now, like with a tool like this. There's probably others that do it, but yeah, I met the founder in Oslo. Like pretty cool. Like you can actually do this, even on an indie budget.
No, that sounds cool. Yeah, I mean, that's
Right.
basically, yeah, again, what I'm looking at.
Love it. Sweet. So with regards to someone's listened to this, they've come to this end, they're clearly interested in kind of how the games industry works, how they might want to get their game funded. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to leave them with that would be really useful? Whether that's pitfalls, things to consider with their team, just anything you feel like, oh, I haven't said this, or they really need to consider this.
Well, again, sadly, well, however you want to phrase it, money is fuel, right? That's how we all make
Sure.
our make our games. So we are in a tough period in the market, where it's very hard to find a deal. But again, it's very doable. Money exists in various different ways or forms, but you need to put in a lot more effort than before. So just Stay alive is the short answer, and take deals that maybe you don't want to take when it comes to code dev and other things, just to keep yourself going. And stop traveling to every goddamn game event in a row pitching the same game. What I normally try to
Why
say
not?
is exactly. So again, I'm assuming you're a small developer and you don't have the biggest budget ever.
Yeah, but
Try
imagine I'm the indie developer. It's like I need to
Mhm.
get my game funded, Pontus. What else could I possibly invest time and money in? Surely that's the
once
best
a
ROI.
once a quarter. Let's say you go to GDC and then you pitch 20 publishers and 10 of them say the exact same feedback. Clearly, you need to make some changes to your game. So
And you
now
got it.
put yourself in that corner, work on it in your way. Don't copy paste the feedback from the publishers, etc. Work on it, come back at Nordic Game, I think it's 3 months later or whatever. Come back to the next event, and then you can pitch it again with said changes. The problem is when we continue to see the same game over and over with minimal changes, it's usually because the developer has spent too much time traveling or too much time on not developing, that we see very little improvements over that period of time. And that's how we judge you, right? Because you have to remember that most publishers and investors, or product financiers, etc., will all judge you based on milestones. So whatever we see to improve between the last email and now, that's how we're going to judge your ability to improve. So as a small footnote here, if you are sending a build, and let's say you don't have the luxury of working on the game for the next 3 months, then put that in the email. By the way, these 3 months are equivalent to 1 month of working time. That one sentence could be very, very important when you send out that build.
That's
Because
cold.
if you don't tell me that, I'm going to be like, this is all that happened in 3 months? And because we get thousands of pitches, like all of the investors and publishers in the industry, that's might be where it ends. Because they don't have the time to go back and be like, hey, by the way, did this really take you 3 months? Can you elaborate? Da, 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 da. They don't have the time to do that to everybody. They'll only do that to things they're very excited about. So remember to put in what I like to do and what I do with our clients is a change log. So, hey, I emailed you 3 months ago. Here's a one-page PDF on the changes that we did, how much time we put into it, and how much money we put into it. And
Love
this
it.
is this is what you've seen. And then they can be like right away, okay, sorry, that's not enough changes, and we've instantly saved ourselves both of our times because the
Yeah,
publisher wants to see something even later. They're like, hey, no, come back to us next milestone, or they'll be like, oh wow, that's very impressive. But it's like very clean and simple in the improvements. So
that's
that would
great.
be an
That's
extra tip.
actually so many parallels to hiring, right? So I
Mhm.
hired one of my content writers. She applied back in December, and I made the mistake in not hiring her because I chose someone else. And she reapplied to the role, and she told me what she's been working on since then. I was like, great, did the writing task, smashed it, and then she's been working with us like a month, 2 months now. She's been crushing it, and I'm like,
That's right.
when it comes to publishers, like it's usually we had a few publishers on the show, and they basically said like you get three bats usually at least, as long as
Mhm.
you tell people what's changed. So what you've just described is a great kind of tactic on how to do it for sure. Like you can't just repitch the same game over and over. That's
No.
basically yeah, it's basically insanity. Use the feedback loops. You've been gifted the gift of feedback.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I
sweet.
I guess another thing to leave you with is just as a reminder, AGP is now working with a fund called Ichiba that you can find on LinkedIn, which does project finance. And it's independent of AGP, so it means that we don't have to sign you and then you have to sign the game
Nice.
fund's money. The game fund invests independently. So that's a pure project financing model. No IP rights, no nothing like this. It's just money, and of course we have milestones as well. And the good thing is that they can invest with the publisher, without a publisher, with marketing agencies, like very flexible in the way of working uh, to get the game to market. So I guess the bigger thing is 15 months or less to launch. So
15
that's
months or
the
less to launch. Great.
yeah, or
So
to
you need a launch date
monetization. We
decided?
can to monetization basically. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's just to confirm. So these are people who have a launch date ish in mind, or they could, with funding, go and release it in 15 months.
Could with funding release it in 15 months.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Ah, great. I just remembered a final question. If you got a few more minutes,
Yeah, I'm
um,
not in a rush.
I had a VC chat. So a VC reached out to me, invest in my company.
Oh.
Um, yeah. So I had the chat, and they gave me some feedback. Haven't spoken to anyone about it. I spoke to my advisors, who kind of in the VC world, and
Mhm.
it got me thinking because when I did the VC chat, they basically reached out and their thesis is Cypriot founders with a global B2B business. And I'm like, surely I'm like one of three people in the world who
I was
can
gonna say,
do
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So but they don't invest in like proper only agencies. There needs to be some scalable nature to it. So like a either a product, SaaS tool, or a platform. I was like, fair. But they said they would follow if another fund invested in me. So this just
Mhm.
got me thinking, right? I'm just thinking of possibilities. What would I do with like $1 million? And what ended up happening within the 2 weeks of having that chat is one of my clients built a tool which can basically show every publisher which has a certain type of game and how much money they make. So, like all my current clients, I do B2B marketing for them. I can show them exactly who needs their service. And it's proprietary and only I have it. And I'm like, okay, am I now VC investable? And then I'm starting to think, okay, why should I raise money? Should I just raise money for the sake of it? Probably not. But I'm getting not conflicting advice. I'm getting different advice, like don't touch VC, and the other one saying, well, there's the right VCs if they're enabled and could upskill and connect you to a platform that's of interest. So that's been on my mind the last couple of weeks, where I'm going through the motions to learn as much as possible, but I haven't really like decided like, oh, yeah, let me just wait until I earn a certain amount of money to even restart that conversation, or maybe I should continue and actively reach out.
No, but see,
And
you see, this is again a problem about generalization from a lot of people
mm,
who have had bad experiences. It's like
yes,
humans love to complain in public and talk about all their bad experiences, but they don't talk about all the good experiences. So you see all, for example, let's take publishers. On Reddit and on the news, all you see is like, oh, publishers bad, publishers did this,
we
publishers
get
are
the
this,
most
and
clicks on
publishers
our
this.
YouTube channel. If we hate on
Exactly.
publishers in the YouTube thumbnail, most views.
Yes. And of course, all of these things probably happened. But what about all the good cases? And VCs for me is the exact same thing. Yes, there are bad
Mm.
VCs, but there are also good VCs. So all of it comes down to terms negotiations, right? But more importantly, understanding what does the VC want? Is their goal to exit in, let's call it, 5 years?
They told me. They were very transparent. So
Right.
yeah,
So
they'll
if
need
they
an
tell you they
exit.
need to exit in
They go.
5 years, then you need to get there, right? No, like no matter what, that is their goal. You're taking their money. You're now committed to exiting them in 5 years.
Well,
But there
this
are
is where I'm like,
VCs. Mhm.
sorry
Oh,
to
go ahead.
interrupt, but I was told by an advisor, like, what if you put in terms where you get the option to give them a 3x multiple in three to
Exactly.
four years, and that could count as an exit, and like that could be okay. It's a very high interest
Yep.
rate loan in that case, but I've now gotten firepower I wouldn't have had otherwise, and if that accelerates my business by 2 years, when I compound that over, that does make sense. So then I'm like,
Exactly.
mm, mm,
So that's all the things you have to take into account, right? Like when we started AGP, we didn't need to raise, money. We could have funded it ourselves, albeit not for a very long time. It would have been like my savings and Jock's savings, and that would have lasted us X amount of months. But why we took money was basically to have the peace of mind, bring in our team, of course, which is an amazing team, and have like runway for 2 years, and then that
yeah,
would allow us to select and pick the people we wanted to work with. If we hadn't raised money, we might have had to sign clients and developers that maybe were a good commercial idea, but perhaps there were no connection. I would have had to pick a game where I don't have that burning
yeah. Is
feeling because I need to make money, right? I need to pay my employees and I need to make money.
that a
So
bad
that's why
thing?
we decided. So
Is that a bad thing?
for a normal business person, probably not, but it's just not what we want to do, right? So no,
Sure.
of
Okay.
course not. Business is business, right? It's just that we created AGP to only work on things we love.
Love it.
And maybe
Cool.
that's naive, but hope as long as we can
It's
continue doing
working so
that,
far.
exactly. As long as we can do that, great. If one day that changes, then that would suck. But
We'll do another
no, so
podcast.
our investors are just friends and family. We didn't, uh, get any massive VCs or an exit period. But you just mentioned one point, like paying someone back. So what we did was, when we pay out dividends, our investors get a larger portion than their shareholding first. So, instead of like 4 years from now being like, hey, Pontus, I've only gotten, 1x my money back. And, like, are you going to sell the company? And no, right now, don't have exit plans. We love AGP. And
Yeah.
again, unless something changes, this is my next 10, 20, 30, 40
That's
years. We'll
me as
see, right?
well. When
Yes.
someone said to me, I was in a business mastermind on the weekend in London, and
Mhm.
he asked a question to the group. He had like a $30 million exit. He was like 29, like impressive guy. And he said, does anyone building their business and doesn't want to sell it. And I was one of three people and like 50 people who put my hand up. And they asked
Yep.
me why, respectfully. And I said, yeah, for me, this is like my baby, my business, I guess. And I think I would
Yep.
rather go public instead of sell it. And then he went on to speak about kind of how the investment side works in agencies. I find it very interesting, where it's like a bigger agency could buy you so they can be sold to one of the bigger agencies because you get
Yeah.
multiples. And then I was like, I'd rather just leapfrog into that. But then the thing I said, the reason I'm very curious, like, well, what if that will accelerate me going there and then I can pay
And
them back and keep all the equity? I'm like, ah,
exactly, and that's the thing, like, again, when people generalize VCs and stuff, you can figure out a way that works for everybody. So in your
yeah,
example, maybe giving them a 2 to 3x in 3 years. In our example, we when we are profitable and we pay out dividends and bonuses, the investors get a portion, right? A bigger portion than the amount of shares that they own so that they get
mm.
an accelerated return. So I never get that phone call, "Hi, when are you
It's like,
exiting?"
hey,
Exactly. So we know that if AGP does really well, and hopefully we do, then they will not give us that phone call because they'll have made money on dividends and we never have to exit.
nice. I
So
haven't thought about
yeah,
paying back the investor because the VCs don't care about dividends, as far as I'm concerned, as much as the
technically,
angels.
well, so VCs need a certain IRR, right? So it
Okay,
depends on how the VC is structured. They need a certain annualized return. If the dividend is above that annualized return, technically it could work. But yes, why it
got it.
normally doesn't work for a VC is because 1 in 100 companies become a unicorn, the rest of them die, right? And one has to offset
Yeah,
the
he
rest of
said
them.
it has to be the potential of a fund returner,
Mhm.
which for me, I mean, it could be, but it will take a while with the current model. But
Exactly. But a lot of VCs nowadays are getting more flexible. They've realized they can't just
sure,
do the old classic unicorn model. So what they do is they have the high risk investment, the medium risk investment, and the low risk investment. And a
that's why
dividend
they said they would
return.
be happy to follow. They just didn't want to
Yeah.
lead it. Hmm.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
there are many ways you can structure deals with investors nowadays. It all comes down to their own fund terms, their LPs, and what returns they've promised. But I've noticed that a lot of VCs are getting more and more flexible.
Direct
And again,
question to
they're
you.
not all bad. You need to negotiate your terms with the
Oh,
like it's
I'm
like I
good at that
said
because
earlier.
I don't need it. I find myself having great conversations with like, I want to make this good for you. If it doesn't happen, I'm cool. That tends to work out well with the conversations, building relationships.
Mm.
Very direct question, if it's okay.
But before
Should
you
I
ask, I
spend?
just want to say
Yeah,
one last thing
please.
on the thing, right? That's why there was a mismatch between indies and VCs, right? Because indies, you need to let them spend time on building IPs and
Mm,
building video games. VCs need a guaranteed 10, 50, 100x in X couple of years. And that model never really made sense for indies. And that's why a lot of indies got frustrated. But if you think about it, an average indie studio is not a 10 to a 100x. It's like a 2, 3, 4, 5 in
it's
a
more
good
like the
scenario.
agency models. Like, you might make a game, make a bit of money, make another game. It
Yeah.
can pop
Sorry
off
to
because
interrupt
it's
you, but
software.
yeah.
No, it's all good. It's interesting. My direct question is, thinking about this takes time. I'd
Mhm.
rather work on my business. There's loads of stuff I know I can improve, which, 2 to 5x every year, my, current revenue. But now I'm thinking, every time I'm not reaching out to like a new VC, I'm not having those conversations.
Mhm.
Should I be spending time talking to VCs and like always be raising? Like I've not, it was only that inbound conversation that led me to chat to people and then get me spinning. But that sounds like a lot of, not a lot of work. I don't know. Is my question
So
even direct?
is
Like,
your
should I spend
direct
time?
question related to you or in general?
Yeah, just me. Like, should I
Just
talk
you?
to more VCs just to see what's out there? Or should I just wait until I'm a bigger size? I don't know.
I would take you back to my high school, and I would just basically do what I used to do. You do a mind map and a pros and
Mm,
cons list, and you're basically like, okay, so on the pro list, I get to accelerate my business 2 years. On the cons list, I'm giving up 10% of my equity. On the cons list, I need to exit in 5 years. On the pro list, I get access to new capital, more employees, and you just build this side by side structure. And you look at the numbers, and you're like, okay, in 5 years from now, where am I if I take the money versus not
mm.
taking the money in a good scenario? And wherever you end up, that's your decision. That's how literally we decided to raise for AGP. We were like, okay, so we don't have to worry about our personal salaries. We can hire the team we want to. We can select the employees that, the deals that we want to sign. And on the con side, yes, we're giving up equity in the company, but not that much. And, normally a con would also be that, we're paying out our dividends to our investors. But for me,
Sure.
that's a pro. You know, they took
Yeah,
the leap
agreed.
of faith. They gave us money. We're paying them back. Everybody's happy. So for us, that con is okay, right? So I would literally, I whenever I am
I will do that.
uncertain, I love the simple high school mind map pros and cons.
Yeah. All
That's
right,
like,
great. I will do
yeah,
that, Pontus. Final question. This is me
yeah,
being very selfish, but it's called the gaming playbook. So
yep.
with Harry Focus, so who cares? As long as you're here. So if I do that mind map,
Mhm,
I've just realized I know a lot of people who'd be probably willing to invest in me. Some people even
mhm.
flat out told me, it's like, hey, let me know. If I need like, I don't know. Wow. If I need a meal, do I even need a VC? Could I just raise that all with angels and call it a day? Is that a question? Like,
If you had the opportunity to race with angels rather than VCs, it's probably better for you. Yeah, because VCs, if they don't have a long-term exit, sometimes there is a secondary share exit from the next VC. And if you're not planning to raise again, angels are usually a lot more lenient.
yeah, I guess I'm
And
only
yeah,
thinking of the benefit of having the VC if I can plug into their portfolio because I happen to be someone who could work with the entire portfolio and value add. That was the
so I
one
was
thing I
about
might
to
not.
say,
Yeah,
based on your, you know, what do you say? Like based on your persona or your LinkedIn
sure.
status. I don't think you in particular would need it, right? You have a big enough network, but you said something very important there. If it opens their portfolio to potential clients for you, then what is that revenue opportunity? How
Yeah,
does
I
that
mean,
look
50
like for you,
clients
right?
that can 3x the business, in like
There you go.
very quick.
So that
Um,
sounds good to me. But yeah, normally
explore
I'd
all
say
options.
like for someone like you that has the network already, if they're not giving you that, why not have some nice angels? So we're not allowed to announce who our angels are, but we actually did the same thing. So we have angels in 8 different countries in different roles in the gaming industry, so that we can pick up the phone when we need something in that particular country, and we'll get access
Hmm.
to it. So that's why we didn't do a fundraise with VCs and like a huge thing, because we were like friends and family, small tickets, and yeah, everybody wins.
Loads to think about. That's my weekend sorted. Lovely. Pontus, thanks so much for the advice at the end. Lovely. Where can people reach out to maybe work with you or talk about the stuff that we discussed? What's the best way?
Yeah, so for pitching us, it's scouting at agoragamingpartners.com. That is both for AGP and for Ichiba. And if it makes sense for our Chinese team, we can pass it over to them. But if you want to specifically speak about Chinese publishing, you can do it at lili at agoragamingpartners.com. She's in charge. Um, Myself, Pontus at agoragamingpartners.com. But if you're going to pitch something, I'm going to send it to the scouting email anyway. All of us have access to it, so the whole company shares that email. Just when we pick and choose.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't post much anymore, but I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. Well, not really anymore. Actually, I'm not on Twitter anymore. Yeah, LinkedIn. Honestly, I think that's the only thing I use. I stopped using social media because
There's only so much time in the day, right?
yeah, and it's mostly negative nowadays. Sadly,
Well, that's because of your feed. There's some positive people there. But it takes effort to
that's
build
probably
it.
true.
So, yeah.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Um, Great. You going to any events where people could see you in person?
Oh yes, so I'm going to be at XP Gaming Summit in three and a
Cool.
half weeks in Canada, and I'm
Nice.
going to be at Gaming Con in Seoul, South Korea. I'm a speaker there, so I'm a speaker at XP Gaming Summit, and actually I'm going to do that talk that I just briefly mentioned about. So that it's a good talk, I think. So you should be there if you want to learn more. Again, Seoul, Korea, end of May, and then I'll be at GameComp in France in Lille in June. So I have 3 events in the next 2 months, and why I'm not going to really pitch anything myself. I'm going to look for games for the game funds. So if you are looking for project finance, then perfect time to catch me. Normally I'm not
Let
scouting, but right now I'm doing a bit of scouting. Yeah, so it's fun.
Oh, good fun. Lovely. Pontus, thank you so much. Till next
Thank you so
time.
much as well.
Bye, everyone. Subscribe.